Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the three pillars of Dungeons and Dragons and how they were built. The three pillars of Dungeons and Dragons are actually a temporal map of human activity, and the three pillars are sequenced to show the past, present, and future of human activity at its most important, most impacting levels. All right, so let me explain. So we are humans, right? And we started out with, like, we were literally naked, right? Like, we didn't have clothes, we didn't have fire, we didn't have, weapons. We had nothing, right? And now, we have arrived at a point where we have literally flown to the moon, right? Like, and we have mastered flight, right? We have mastered the ocean, right? The surface of the ocean. We have not mastered the depth of the ocean, right? And so we've made a lot of progress, but there's still a far way to go. So what I want you to understand is, so let's talk about the pillars of Dungeons and Dragons. There's 2 points of importance to understand with the pillars of Dungeons and Dragons. Gary initialized them in Dungeons and Dragons 1E with the white box. He sets the pillars into Dungeons and Dragons with the white box. What are the pillars? Combat. Interaction, okay, social interaction. Every time I say interaction, I mean social interaction. And exploration. So it's combat, interaction, exploration, okay? Now, we understand so that's 1E. It's initialized, it's set into the game by Gary in 1974, okay? In 2014, Mike Merles, and trust and believe, the 99% of all of the success that is being enjoyed by 5e right now rests on the shoulders of Mike Merles. He rescued the game, from 4th edition, which it literally could have been the end of the game. And what he did was he brings this new edition, but the most important thing in 5e was to shout to the world and a clarification, an exclamation, a clarifying exclamation of the pillars. And he says, these are the pillars of Dungeons and Dragons: combat, interaction, exploration. And what he was saying is, hey, if you weren't paying, in my humble opinion, what Mike Morris was saying is, hey, if you weren't paying attention, this ain't a game, right? Like, this ain't Chutes and Ladders, something that you can't learn from. This isn't for fun. This is a tool that you will use to forge yourself into a bigger, better, badder you, right? And by extension, everyone at your table is going to be improved, everybody in your community is going to be improved, and the world will be improved through Dungeons and Dragons. In my humble opinion, that's what Merles was saying when he did that clarifying exclamation of the pillars, because the pillars are what are used to change Dungeons and Dragons from, not change, but acknowledge Dungeons and Dragons as not the game it was disguised for as for 48 years, but as the human improvement tool it was in 1E and is in 5E, all the way through 5E, in my humble opinion, right? So you have these pillars. You have combat, you have interaction, and you have exploration. Now, how are these a map, in a sequenced map of human activity? Look in your 5e book, right? When the clarifying exclamation of Mike Merles declaring what Gary had accomplished in 1974 and calling you to stop playing Dungeons and Dragons and start using Dungeons and Dragons, in my humble opinion. When he does that, he puts them in the correct order: combat, interaction, and exploration. So let me explain. When we came out and we were naked and we had nothing, right? No fire, nothing. And we took, what we took up first? You know what humans took up first? And a club, right? Like, violence and combat was the first thing we mastered, right? And we slew each other with clubs, spears, swords, and the bleeding edge, right? The edge of technology was always used to kill each other first. Humans first mastered combat, and we have been doing combat for a ton of times. By the way, there's one particular dude who is still doing combat exactly the way it always was, with clubs. It's Vladimir Putin. He has not moved on to interaction, and he certainly hasn't moved on to exploration. His entire life is dedicated to combat, right? And right now he is, reminding the world, and he is trying to force the world back to a state where interaction is no longer important, right? Okay, so you have combat comes first. Next is interaction. We have started to communicate with each other as humans in incredibly complex ways, and our interaction is real, and it is and it is impacting, and it is informative, and it is valuable. Okay. Now, here's the thing. We couldn't move to interaction until we had gone through combat. We are broken. We are fundamentally dedicated to violence, right? And right now, we're still dealing with this today, right? Our interaction is growing, but we haven't mastered interaction the way we've mastered combat as a rate, as a species, right? Think about it, right? I just listened to the USA Today, and they talked about the Uvalde villain, right? And they said the Uvalde villain was a young, dedicated man. And they said, what are the reasons why these young, dedicated men are moving into are massively doing this Uvalde, type crime again and again and again, right? And they said, why? Because they want a sense of, they want to be known. They don't want to be forgotten, right? And our media gives it to them, right? They do these terrible things, and their names are remembered forever. There's going to be a Netflix documentary all about the Uvalde villain, and you will know his name, right? But one block away from him was an honor student who was the same person, right? But just focused on their scholarly endeavors, made good friends, made cookies for the people around them, walked old ladies across the street, and you're never going to know that person's name, right? Like, our interaction is still failing today. However, we have moved into this state of interaction, right? And we now have this ability to begin to interact, but combat is what we celebrated. Combat was what we mastered first, and we still celebrate it today, and we give the greatest glory to those who dedicate themselves to violence on the good or bad side, which is terrible, right? And we need to start, honoring and celebrating those who have dedicated themselves to interaction. Since we mastered combat in our past, our present right now is interaction, right? There are people like Vladimir Putin trying to drag us to the past and say, no, we cannot progress into our interaction phase, right? They are being, hopefully we're going to win, and our interaction will be able to win. But we could not move into interaction until we had mastered combat. Guess what? Humanity has never done true exploration. Our little jaunt to the moon, why have we not gone back? Because we suck at exploration, and none of our exploration is real, right? We have fully explored the surface of the ocean. We don't know what's at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, right? We haven't built colonies there, right? We haven't built colonies on the moon. We haven't built colonies on Mars because we have never actually explored. Exploration is not unlocked for humanity. We haven't reached it. The pillars are a temporal map, a time-based map of human activity. They show us where we've been. We were at combat, right? We're still dealing with it now. We are now fully engaged in interaction and trying to master interaction. Only when interaction has been mastered will we begin and be capable of actual exploration. Vladimir Putin must be defeated if we're going to have 10 million Americans, Russians, and French people and Nigerian people living together in peace and harmony on Mars. We can never explore. We have never explored because we have not completed the temporal map of Gary Gygax. He showed us the path. We mastered combat. We have to master interaction before we can unlock exploration. Gary saw all of it, right? And he drew a map to where we were, where we are, where we are going, and he put it in sequence on purpose. And then Mike Mearls was smart enough to point to it, in my humble opinion, right? And all of this comes in order to unlock the potential of humanity. We must look at, understand, and follow Gary's map. That's my opinion. What's yours? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.